I remember my mom working 3 different jobs just to put food on the table. And whenever I say food on the table, I remember specifically eating tortillas with lime and salt. And that was our dinner. Like I would eat like 3 of them. And I would just like, that was a good dinner for us.
See how you do under pressure. Yeah, I've been wanted this.
I feel like this is the only genuine conversation I have like all week.
Myself up, moving on to the better.
Welcome back to the Willpower Podcast. I know it's been a little bit. I actually just checked the calendar. It's been a little bit over a month. And man, we just hit 100 episodes about a month ago. And we hit a speed bump at 102. We're going through a couple of changes with our team here, which I couldn't do this without. And I've decided, especially since after being with you guys for over 100 episodes, to push myself out of the comfort zone, because honestly, the reality is the reason why the inconsistency also began is because, man, complacency is so easy to get to you. And if you've known me, if you've heard, episodes before, you've probably heard me say that that's one of my biggest fears, and it's complacency, because it is the enemy of progress. So I will be consistent in 2025, and I'm also pushing myself out of my comfort zone, because if you've listened to 1, 2, or more episodes, you probably know that I never do these by myself. Today is my first solo podcast, and the reason I'm doing this is because I love talking with people. I love interviewing people, but I love being in person with them. So that's also part of, after you've had 100 people on the show, it's hard to kind of keep coming up with local people or people that you can get together with in person rather than doing it through Zoom. So it gets hard. So it's easy to be like, who's the next person that I'm going to interview? So 2025, you'll probably be hearing a little bit from just me. I'll keep it short, but just to be consistent, I want to make sure that I'm adding value to you guys. So this is the first episode to kick off 2025. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for everybody who has been there since the beginning. And man, I'm not very good at celebrating myself or any of my accomplishments. But 100 episodes, it's a big deal. And it wouldn't be possible without my team, with you guys. So today, I thought I want to jump on here. I want to welcome everybody to 2025. And I also would like to do a couple of things. I would like to, one, kind of like reintroduce myself, but it's not really a reintroduction if I've never actually introduced myself to you, right? I don't know. I feel like a lot of people that listen to the podcast are people that already know me, but in reality, those are the people that the only people that I interact with, right? I get messages from people that listen on Instagram stuff, but I don't ever realize that those people don't really know who I am. And then 2, my hope is that by you getting to know me, that I motivate you, and that you are able to take 3 different things to be able to go into 2025, and whatever your goal is, whether it's in fitness, whether it's in your work, whatever it is, in your family, in your faith, that you're encouraged to keep going and push forward. And also, I can't believe it's been a whole year since I've started doing cold plunges. If you guys listen over the last year, which this podcast started in 2022, so you didn't listen about cold plunges all of 2022 and all of 2023, but this past year, 2024, I probably brought it up every single podcast, because that's what people do, right? If you do CrossFit, if you do cold plunging, you do it so you can tell people that you do, right? At least that's what it feels like. But 365 plus now cold plunges, and super, super excited for this new year to be able to hit new goals and be able to kind of keep this going. Because even if I only touch a couple of you guys, man, that means the world to me, to be able to utilize the technology that we have and some of the gifts that I feel like God has given to me to be able to touch people and hopefully change some lives. So, all right. One of the questions that I've gotten over the last couple of years, not just from people that have listened to the podcast, but also people that have looked at my content overall. And also, I mean, this has been a thing my entire life, but a lot of the times people don't even know what ethnicity I am. And so for starters, to not reintroduce myself, but to just introduce myself, is my name is William Gomez, and I am actually not Samoan or Filipino or Indian or Asian or whatever other guess that you might have. I'm actually Mexican. And not only am I Mexican, but I was actually born in Mexico. And my mom had me when she was 17 years old. And 2 years after that, she had my little sister, Melissa. And 2 years after that, she had my little brother, Manuel. And when I say that we grew up really poor in Mexico, that's, an understatement, because a lot of the times people think of poverty and they think of poverty here in the United States. And the reality is a lot of people don't realize, but if you're making like $33,000 a year, you're in the top like 10% of earners in the entire world. People that are making $30,000 here in this country seem like they're just getting started, right? Like they're trying to climb up the ladder maybe, or they're just like, I can barely get by, or whatever the thought process might be. But if you're making $30,000 in a country that's even as closest to us as Mexico, like you're doing really well, because all these countries all around the world outside from you of Mexico, they're not very privileged. So I say that because I remember my mom working 3 different jobs just to put food on the table. And whenever I say food on the table, I remember specifically eating tortillas with lime and salt. And that was our dinner. Like I would eat like 3 of them. And I would just like, that was a good dinner for us. And but as a little kid, I didn't really realize where like our situation was, right? Because I'm just thinking about it. Christmas was just a couple of weeks ago. And on Christmas Day, my son Maverick turned 19 months old, so a little under 2 years. And it was such a fun Christmas for me because I really got to see him open up presents and really be happy. We got him a Woody. He loves Toy Story, and we got him a Buzz Lightyear, and he opens it up, and he was pretty happy. But then he opened up Woody, and he just started freaking out, and he's like, he was getting excited. And what I loved about this whole thing too is that he gets some things from me and he gets other things from his mother. And one of the things that he gets from me, unfortunately, if you don't know me, like really know me, not just from my videos, you know that sometimes I have very bad RBF. If you don't know what that means, it's resting something face, right? If you're not like talking, you're not like interacting with somebody, you're just maybe like thinking or on your phone, like you just look mad. And Maverick unfortunately gets that from me. And every picture, he just looks super mad. But what I think he gets some good qualities from his mom. So he's opening these presents, and he rips it apart, and then he puts it in a ball, and then throws it away before he's like goes and cares about his gift. And I'm like, man, such a clean kid, right? Like I just I don't know, that really just spoke to me a lot. And I'm bringing this up because Maverick is never going to remember this Christmas. He's never going to remember whether we got him a Buzz Lightyear or a Toy Story, or we didn't get him anything, or he's not going to remember if he ate what he ate, right? He's 19 months old. But it wasn't until I was about 5.5-ish that I remember exactly what our situation was. And our situation was not very good whenever I realized what it was. I remember walking through a plaza filled with carts of different, people were selling food, people were selling different merchandise. And I specifically remember walking by this cart that was selling pizzas by the slice. And I remember asking my mom, hey, can we have a piece of pizza? And she said, son, we can't afford that. And I think at this point, I probably should have realized, now thinking about it, that I was going to grow up and be in sales, because part of me didn't want to just be like, okay, sounds good, or throw a fit like a little kid. My first thought was like, how can I still get this, at least portion of it? So I said, Mom, what if we get one piece and share between the four of us? Me, my brother and sister, and my mom. Because of course, as if you haven't already guessed, I actually grew up without a dad. I've never met my dad. I don't even know what his name is. It's been a big pillar in my life, and I truly believe that's why I love my mom as much as I do. But also, it's made me, as strong as I've been my entire life, because I've never had that, fatherly love or whatever. So it was four of us, and my mom looks at me and says, son, we really can't afford that. And there's like one tear coming down her eye. And that's when I realized like what her situation was. And again, like I said, it wasn't a good one. Like if you have a family of four, going back, if you're making $30,000 a year in the United States, you can probably buy a pizza for a family of four. Like you can go to like Little Caesars, or you can go to, whatever. And even if you're not doing so great, like you can afford to buy everybody their own pizza probably. We were a family of four, and we could not even buy one piece of pizza to split it between the four of us. But the reason I remember that, and the reason why that stuck with me, and the reason why I truly believed it happened for a reason, is because not long after that, my mom comes up to me and she says, hey, I think I found a way to get us in a better position. And I was like, great. At this point, I already know what our current situation is, and it's not good. So I'm like, great. What do we need to do? And she said, I found a new job. The only thing is that it's not here. It's in the United States. And I said, great, when are we leaving? I didn't ask any questions. I didn't even know that the United States was a different country. And she said, well, that's the thing, is that I actually need you to stay back with your aunt and uncle, their kids, which was also my aunt and uncle. We're going with my mom, and they were staying back, and they were willing to take care of us while my mom came over and worked. She said, I need you to stay back with your aunt and uncle and take care of your brother and sister. She said, I'm only going to be gone for 6 months. And when I get back, I'll save enough money and we won't be in the situation that we're in right now. And everything in me just wanted to just cry like a little kid. I didn't want to leave my mom. But I knew that it had to be done. And I said, all right, 6 months. That's all it'll take, right? And she said, yes, 6 months. She leaves. Our life changes because now we're a little bit more what I'd call, I guess, privileged. And it wasn't that we were like rich or anything like that, but like we didn't have to worry about what we were going to eat. We went to a better school, just different things like that. And 6 months go by. And honestly, I didn't care about any of that. I just cared that I didn't have my mom with me, and honestly would rather pick going back to not being able to afford one piece of pizza for the four of us rather than not have my mom. And now that I have my own son, thinking about this, makes me realize the sacrifice that my mom made even more, because like in his 19 months of life, I've only been away from him like a week times in the entire like almost 2 years. Not a week in a row, but like, a couple days here and there that have all totaled up to about a week. And 6 months go by, and I just can't wait for my mom to come home. And I remember talking with her, and I said, hey, Mom, it's almost time. Like, when do you think that you'll be here? Like, and, are you going to be here on a Monday, on a Tuesday? What day? 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks? Like, tell me. And she said, well, I think I found a way to bring you guys here and make our situation even better. And I was like, great. Again, I probably still don't even remember thinking like the United States was like a different country. But I just didn't care. I'm like, whether we're moving to South Korea, North Korea, whatever, like as long as I'm with my mom. And she said, well, I need you to wait a little bit more time because I don't have enough money saved. And I said, how long? And this time she didn't give me a time frame. And I was just like, okay. And it wasn't until 2.5 years later that I got to see my mom for the first time. And it was one of the best days of my life, and it was one of the worst days of my life because I got to see my mom for the first time. I was so happy to see her, and also got to have McDonald's the first time that I came here, which I used to see that on TV, and it was awesome. And I also got to see my little brother not recognize his mom, so he didn't want to be around her for a couple of weeks because this was before FaceTime and everything. And man, it was heartbreaking. But everything else outside of that was also very hard because I didn't know a lick of English. I didn't know if people were speaking English or they were speaking another language. One of the other things that I had to get used to was like there was a lot of more different nationalities here. In Mexico, it was just like, I was just surrounded by Mexican people and or Hispanic people, right? Like even if they weren't Mexican, like they spoke Spanish, they were my skin color, etc. And here there was just so many different types of people that I didn't even know, like, are they speaking their native language or are they speaking English? Because I couldn't understand. I remember having to ask to go to the bathroom by like making signs because I remember going up to the teacher and just going one, and she like didn't understand what I meant. Like it was like number 1 or number 2, and then I just kept like saying like I need to go. And one time I remember just leaving, and then I came back, and then I was like I had to go to the bathroom, and but I think what kept me going this entire time, ever since I got here and I was in 4th grade, was that I felt like I could not fail because of the sacrifice that my mom had made. And that was not only to bring us here, but that was to be away from us for that long. Like that was a pretty big sacrifice. And I just felt that I would be doing her a disservice if I just gave up on school, if I just gave up on the first job that I ever had, if I just gave up in sports, even if I was in practice, like I felt like I was doing her a disservice that I said, no matter what I do here, I have to try to be the best that I can be in order to be able to make the sacrifice that my mom made of bringing us here worth it. And man, that's how it was all throughout school, all throughout sports, all throughout the different jobs that I had. And it's also funny how, we end up in the careers that we end up in, because if you would have asked me, which another thing too that I feel like most people know, especially if you follow me on Instagram and stuff, but in the podcast, I don't really ever talk about much of like what I do, which I'm a loan officer. I help people purchase homes. If you would ask me, I would have never thought that I would be doing that as a career. It kind of happened by accident. Two things kind of happened by accident. I was finishing community college, and I was actually supposed to transfer to a university, Oklahoma State University, and I felt God calling me to go to Bible college, and I was like, this has got to be wrong. I don't want to go to Bible college. I don't think this is, I did not want to go. And I remember saying, God, if this is you, give me a sign. And within 3 days, I had a full ride to go to Bible college. And I was just like, okay, I guess this is my sign. So I go there. If I wouldn't have gone there, I wouldn't have met my wife, which, funny story, I was born in Mexico. She was born in Canada. So we kind of met in the middle in Bible college. And the other thing, too, is that if I wouldn't have gone to Bible college, I would have never ended up where I'm at today in my career, which I completely love and super blessed to do what I do. And I remember I was a manager at GNC, an assistant manager at GNC, and I was just burning the candle at both ends, as they say. I was doing so much, and one of my mentors said, "Hey, my friend is interviewing for a part-time tellers, and I think that you could get the job because you're bilingual." Yes, that's another thing about me. A lot of people don't. Not only am I Mexican, but I'm real Mexican. I told you I was born in Mexico and I speak Spanish. Might not be as good as it was whenever I first came here, but I should have listened to my mom when she said that if I didn't use it, I would lose it. That's 100% right. I go and interview. I get this job. I'm thinking it's just seasonal, and I get hired on. And my branch manager at the time says, "Hey, I used to be a part-time teller." And I was like, how'd you get to where you're at? He's like a senior vice president branch manager. And he said, you just got to learn how to sell. And I said, "So what do you sell at a bank? Like, I didn't know you sold anything." And he said, "Here, I'll teach you and just kind of follow my lead." And then the first time he said, "Anybody that doesn't have a savings account, sell them a savings account. Help them because it'll protect their money. It'll give them interest." At the time, it was like 0.001, right? But I felt like I was helping people. So the first day that he tells me that, I'm literally asking every single person. And I believe I got like 73, 76 savings accounts that first day, or at least leads to be able to like get to people, the bankers, because I wasn't the one opening them. I was just the one that was getting them to say yes, and then I would pass it over. And that, man, I felt such a high, such a rush, and I was like, I love this. I love this. And as I started learning different things, I remember learning what a credit card was, and I remember pitching that. And there was this lady that's coming up to me, and she's withdrawing money, and I'm just chomping at the bit to pitch her this credit card. And she gets done withdrawing the money, and I said, "Hey, would you like to apply for a 0% interest credit card? It's 0% interest, and you don't have to use it. It's just good to have it just in case." I give her this whole spiel, and she says, "That actually would really help me out right now." And I'm like, "Great. I just made a sell." That's what I was thinking in my head. And as I'm taking her information, I'm actually really getting to know her. And she tells me she's a single mom, has 3 kids. She's really struggling. And as I get done with the application, I click submit, and it gets declined. And man, I just didn't have the guts to tell her. And I said, "Can you give me 1 second? I think my computer froze." And I go and talk with my manager, and I tell him the whole thing. And he said, "Does she own a home?" I said, "Yes." That was one of the first questions. Does she have any equity? I had no idea what equity was. If you don't know what equity is either, go to my Instagram, my YouTube channel, and that's one of the things that I love about my job now, is that I get to educate people, not sell people. Comes over, we're able to help her get a home equity loan, pay off all her debt, and give her some money to have in her savings. And I remember her being so excited, and she truly felt that I had helped her. All I could think about is that was my mom. And if my mom would have owned a home, maybe I could have the 2.5 years that I lost with her back, because she would have had equity. She would have had money, right? And of course, I'm just kind of saying this stuff in my head. I don't know if that would have been real, right? If she would have owned a home in Mexico, that our situation would have been any better. But you kind of get where I'm going. Like, that's kind of the first thing that I went through. So after that, every person that I spoke with, whatever I was doing, I would always ask them, "Do you own a home?" And if you don't, I would walk them to our mortgage banker's office, and I would say, "You need to talk to this guy, because it doesn't matter if it's tomorrow or if it's in 5 years, you got to buy a home, because it creates generational wealth." And I got obsessed with this. I bought my first home when I was 21. And anyways, I'm sharing all that with you because I told you I wanted you to get to know me a little bit better. So that way in 2025, whenever you're listening, me having conversations with people, you feel like you know me a little bit better. Who's the person behind asking, these people questions? And also, I told you that I wanted to motivate you and I wanted to encourage you for whatever goal it is that you have for 2025. And the reason I'm sharing that with you is because if you truly want to succeed in 2025, no matter what goal, what achievement you want to do, these are the 3 things that you got to do. You got to make sure that you are willing to do things that you've never done before. That sounds so basic, but let me tell you, easy things are easy to do, but they're also easy not to do. And so if you tell me that you want to run a marathon, you got to be willing to go out there and run when it's cold outside. And it's something that you might have never done before, but you got to be willing to do that in order to be able to become a better you. You got to be willing to sacrifice. You got to be willing to sacrifice just like my mom did when she came over here. I guarantee you that none of you guys that are still listening to this thought during that story that my mom did that just to have some time away from her kids and go on a 2-year vacation. But she had to sacrifice. And it's not easy to do. And when you sacrifice, there's change that's going to happen in the discomfort that you're feeling. And that's whenever you're truly going to be able to reach your full potential, is whenever the discomfort's in and you sacrifice certain things. No matter how big or how small they are, I'm not saying for you to, put your kids away for 2 years or do something drastically, but I'm talking about even like if it's 9 p.m. and you shouldn't have that Twinkie in the pantry because you have goals that you want to get more fit this year. That's hard. It's hard saying no to that Twinkie at 9 p.m. or 12 p.m. or 12 a.m. or whatever, but it's in those little or big hard things that I promise you're going to see change. The other thing is being adaptable. No matter where you're thrown at in your job, in your faith, in your family, in your finances, in your career, being adaptable is truly what's going to set you apart. It doesn't matter how good looking you are. It doesn't matter how tall you are. It doesn't matter how confident you are. It matters how adaptable you are. And if you're throwing a curveball, you have to still be able to hit that ball. You can't just be swinging for perfect balls. I don't even play baseball, so I hope this makes sense to you guys. But but that's most people. Most people are saying, I want to do my goals. I want to do everything, but everything has to be perfect just as I practice it. And then once a curveball comes, they miss. And they miss again, and they miss again, and then they're done because they're like, this is too hard. I told myself that I wanted to do this, that I wanted to run a marathon this year, but I didn't realize that every single time that I was going to go run, it was going to be raining outside. It was going to be cold outside. You have to be adaptable. And last but not least, you have to know your why, of why you're doing whatever you're doing, whether it's to lose 5 pounds, whether it's to make more money, whether it's to help more people, whether it's to become a better husband, a better father, whatever it is. Know why you're doing it, because the reason why I do what I do, and the question I get asked all the time is, how do you stay, how have you been able to get successful at what you're doing in your career in a short period of time? And how have you been able to do that time and time again, year and year after year? And it's because I know my why. And I don't have the luxury of feeling that I can fail because of the sacrifice that my mom made, and because I know my why. And my why is to help people create generational wealth through real estate. And it just fires me up talking about it. So make sure that you're willing to sacrifice something, be adaptable, and know your why. And I promise you, 2025 is going to be your best year yet. Guys, thanks so much for just jumping on here and hearing me out. I hope I didn't bore you too much. Again, this is my first solo podcast, and I know I've shared this before with some people and also in different speaking engagements I've done, but I figured why not share it here on a podcast and get them to know me a little bit more, and hopefully I motivated at least one or two of you to be able to truly have your best year yet. So cheers to many more episodes this year in 2025, and thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. And if you haven't already, make sure that you subscribe. And even if you don't subscribe, if you could do me a huge favor and forward this or any other episode that you've liked to a friend or family member that you think it could help them, that'd mean the world to me. Cheers, guys.